Hello again and welcome to another Ourdadsstamps video. For today's video I'm going to talk about the stamps of the Gold Coast and Ghana. The Gold Coast was constituted by Royal Charter in 1874 and issued its first stamps the following year in 1875. The first set of stamps were a slightly different design from the usual Queen Victoria stamps, and initially consisted of three stamps: a penny blue, a fourpenny magenta and a sixpenny orange. These were issued with Crown CC watermark and perforation of 12.5. These three stamps are quite valuable individually. The penny is a mint value of 650, the fourpence is 550 and the sixpence is 850. Used, they're a bit less, around about £100 each, but certainly as a mint stamps, quite a considerable outlay if you want to get those. The set was reissued in 1876 with 14 perforation and had the addition of a halfpenny olive yellow and a twopenny green stamp. Those 5 stamps are slightly less expensive, ranging from £50 for the penny blue up to £300–400 for the sixpenny orange. So still a fair outlay, but getting closer to being affordable. In 1882, the halfpenny and penny blue were reissued yet again with the Crown CA watermark. The penny blue is certainly the one you want to get hold of. That catalogue's at £1,200 mint, although not so much, once again only £100 used. So if you find yourself with a penny blue, you do need to check the watermarks, because that one is well worth it. And finally, the set was issued for a fourth time with a Crown CA watermark and perforation 14 in different colours. And these run from a halfpenny up to 2 shillings. The 9 stamps having a catalogue value of £200 mint and about £70 used. So used values are not too bad for that set, and it is a nice looking set. As I said, slightly different from the normal key types, but still obviously a Queen Victoria stamp and looks good. In 1889 they reverted to the key type Queen Victoria stamp and initially issued a set of just 4 stamps that consisted of a 5 shilling, a 10 shilling and 2 20 shilling stamps. Quite why they issued these stamps I'm not quite sure, and in fact it wasn't until 1929 that there was any postal use for values over 10 shillings. However, the post office did apply postal cancellations when these stamps were used with telegram fees, so you can still find them with a postal cancellation and therefore considered a valid postage stamp. The high values set of 4, naturally enough, have quite a high catalogue value, but the one that you really want to get hold of is the 20 shilling green and red, which has a mint catalogue value of 3,750. And as yet hasn't been found used. There's an interesting story with the 20 shilling green and red. It was actually withdrawn from sale in April 1893 when a large part of the stock was stolen, and it wasn't until nearly a year later that the replacement was made available, and this is the 20 shilling mauve and black. A more normal set was then issued in 1898, which ran from a halfpenny up to 10 shillings and consisted of 10 stamps. The catalogue value of this complete set is only about £450, mint or used, so reasonably affordable. As always, it's the high values, the 5 shilling and 10 shilling, that command most of that £450, so you can certainly get hold of the rest of them easily enough. When King Edward came to the throne, they continued using the normal key type stamps, and as with the rest of Commonwealth countries, initially there was a set with a Crown CA watermark, then there was a second set with a multiple Crown CA watermark, and then there was a third set with a colour change with a Crown CA watermark. The first set issued in 1902 ran from a halfpenny to 20 shillings, and these 11 stamps catalogue at about £450 mint, but £700 used. So it's certainly worth looking at for used values, and as always, it's the 10 shilling and 20 shillings that are the most valuable. The first multiple crown CA set ran from a halfpenny only up to 2 and 6pence, and consequently the catalogue value for the set of 7 is about half of what the crown CA set are. And then with the colour change, it ran up to 5 shillings, consisted of 10 stamps. Again, catalogue values £200 for the set mint and about £400 for the set used. So look out for the used ones. In 1908, they issued a penny red stamp with a completely different design. Now, I'm not quite sure why they issued just one stamp with this design on it, but it's not particularly value, only £10 mint and pennies used. But there was already a penny red stamp, so whether they'd run short of supplies and needed a new one, I'm not sure, and why they bothered making a new design specifically for that stamp. But it's there, it's not expensive, so to complete the set of Gold Coast stamps, you need to get hold of that one. Obviously, soon after that, King George V came to the throne. And once again, they used the key type values for a set which ran from a halfpenny to 20 shillings. However, for the penny red, they used the same design as the new King Edward VII design. I'm not sure why this design was used, again, on only one stamp. It's quite a nice design, but you'd think they'd have stuck with the simpler key type designs. The first set of King George V stamps with a multiple crown CA runs from a halfpenny green up to 20 shillings and consists of 12 stamps. Reasonably valuable, but all the value goes in the 20 shilling stamp. They're about £250 mint, of which 200 of that is the 20 shilling stamp, and £350 used. Again, 200 of that is the 20 shilling stamp, so you can certainly pick up the rest of the set reasonably easy. There are a lot of shade variations on this set, so although there are only 12 stamps in the set, by the time you've added in all the shades, there's an awful lot more to collect. In 1929, as with most other Commonwealth countries, the set was reissued with a multiple script CA watermark, and this ran from a halfpenny up to £2. The set of 12 stamps up to 15 shillings catalogues at round about £200 mint and £800 used, but again the used value is mostly taken up with the 15 shilling stamp. The £2 stamp is much more valuable. Mint it's valued at £600, but the used value of the £2 green and orange is a whopping £2,500. So certainly one to look out for, but it's certainly going to cost you a fair bit of money to get that one. And once again, I'm at a loss to see why they needed a £2 stamp, but it obviously had some use. In 1928, they brought out a new design of stamps, and I quite like this design, especially with the two coloured varieties. This set of 10 stamps runs from a halfpenny up to 5 shillings, and is reasonably easy to get hold of. It's only the 5 shilling stamp that's really expensive. But the 10 stamps catalogue at £120 mint, £75 used. Half the mint value is the 5 shilling stamp, and almost all the used value is the 5 shilling stamp. So they're not difficult to get hold of. But I said I quite like that set. It's quite nice to have something different. In 1938, they brought out a new set for King George VI, and once again they came up with a slightly different design and produced a set of 13 stamps running from a halfpenny up to 10 shillings. The lower values from a halfpenny to 9pence are a vertical design, all very similar, all in one colours, and then the shilling up to 10 shillings are a horizontal design in two colours. The basic set is very affordable. Catalogue price for all 13 stamps is £40 mint and £80 used, but you need to be careful, or you need to watch out. The standard perforation is 12 by 11.5, but they were also printed in a 12 line perf. Now, if you can get hold of the set with the line perforation, that changes the whole value. Instead of being catalogued at £40, the set is catalogued at £380. So it's definitely worth checking your perforations on that stamp. And the difference between line perforation and cone perforation can generally be told at the corners. With the cone perforation, it's very neat and tidy. Line perforations, it can be a little bit more messy. So it's definitely worth checking the different perforation and seeing which ones you've got. And as I said, certainly the 12 line perforation makes a huge difference. In 1948, they replaced this set with a new set with new designs, and these are of a lot more standard design of different views and different scenes in and around the Gold Coast. This set runs from a halfpenny up to 10 shillings again, and is a set of 12 stamps. Catalogue value mint is about £80, used £50, and they're reasonably easy to get hold of. Like all sets, in my opinion, it looks nice when you've got the complete set. In actual fact, it's the 5 shilling one is more valuable than the 10 shilling one, mint, so that's rather unusual, but it's certainly worth getting hold of all of them. A very similar design, if not identical designs, were used for the Queen Elizabeth set that came out in 1952. And once again, this was a set of 12 stamps running from a halfpenny up to 10 shillings. More or less the same value as the George V stamps, £85 mint and at £30 used. With this set, it's the 5 shilling and 10 shilling that are slightly more expensive. But again, reasonably easy to get hold of, and it's a nice looking set. What you need to be wary of is this set was also produced when Gold Coast gained independence in 1957 and issued this complete set with an overprint saying Ghana Independence 6th of March 1957. So when you collect these sets, you need to distinguish between the set that's overprinted and not overprinted. The overprinted set is worth far less. The whole set mint is only £15 and used is £14. But what happened with the used set, there were a whole load of stamps left over, and in 1961, just to use them up, they were cancelled to order and sold off to the stamp collectors. And it's impossible to tell which ones were cancelled to order, which ones were put through the post. So because of that, the used set has minimal value. So much earlier than a lot of other nations, Ghana gained independence in 1957. They issued a small set of 4 stamps at the same time as the overprint set. And the 4 stamps are twopence, halfpenny, 4pence and 1 and 3pence. All show Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and a map of Africa showing where Ghana is, and a vulture. They're in a single colour. They're not particularly valuable. A couple of quid will buy you the whole set, so very easy to get hold of. But those are, along with the overprint set, the first stamps issued with the new Dominion of Ghana. The early sets from Ghana were quite colourful, and in 1959 they issued their first pictorial complete set, which was a set of 16 stamps running from a halfpenny up to £1, and this included 2 specific airmail stamps, so 1 and 3pence and 2 shillings. The whole set is not particularly valuable at all. The catalogue value, mint is £20, used is only a fiver, so easy to get hold of. One thing I didn't realise until I was doing this video was actually for 2 of the stamps, the halfpenny and the 3pence, there are 2 different types. One is inscribed God's Omnipotence, and the other is described Ghanaian, which presumably is Ghanaian for the same words. So when you're collecting this set, to get the complete set, you need 2 types for the halfpenny and 2 types for the 3pence. They have no particular extra value and they're not that difficult to get hold of. But if you want the complete set, just watch out for the two different types. Ghana became a republic in 1960, and then in 1965 they changed the currency, and the new currency was 100 pesewas equaled 1 cedi. I hope I've pronounced those correctly. I have no idea whether that's the correct pronunciation, unfortunately. But they overprinted the pictorial set with the new values, and the set of 13 stamps once again doesn't have a huge value. £20 mint, £26 used. And then bizarrely, 2 years later in 1967, they changed the currency again to 100 new pasawis equals 1 new cedi. And once again they overprinted the pictorial set, not the complete set this time, but 10 of those stamps with the new currency. And then a few months later they issued a completely new set with the new currency on. This runs from 1 new pasawi to 250. Again, not a huge values. 15 stamps catalogues at £24-25 mint and used. Colourful set, and if you're interested in Ghana stamps, then certainly ones you can get hold of and not too expensive. One thing with the stamps of Ghana, from about 1964 onwards, many of the issues were available imperforate as well as perforated. They were not sold at post offices imperforate, but they've certainly come onto the market. And you may pick up imperforated stamps, but they really don't hold any more value than the perforated ones. So whilst it's a novelty and perhaps nice to have, then they haven't got a great deal of value. One other thing with the stamps around this time, they issued several mini sheets, and quite a few of them are worth a fair bit of money. For example, the UNESCO set, which was issued in 1966 and consists of 5 stamps from 5p up to 60p. Now the set of stamps individually are catalogued at £12 mint, £18 used, but the mini sheet is £40 mint, £42 used. And there's quite a few other mini sheets that have this inflated value, so certainly something to look out for with Ghanaian stamps, and worth having a look. By the late 70s, the values of the mini sheets had reverted to normal, but around the late 60s, early 70s, they're worth looking out for and checking whether they're the valuable ones or they're not the valuable ones. Ghana, like most countries from the late 60s onwards, started to produce more and more stamps, and there's the usual thematic stamps that you can add to your collection if you're into thematic sets. There's, as you would expect, several bird sets. Quite a nice bird set from 1991, which was produced on a mini sheet of 16 stamps. There's butterflies, there's flowers, there's sport. And by the late 80s, early 90s, Ghana started producing ridiculous amounts of stamps. And really, if you were looking at Ghana stamps from then on, you'd have to specialise in some sort of thematic topic because there's just too many of them. However, some of them are quite nice and maybe something that you want to look at and add to your collection. So I hope this has given you an insight into the stamps of Gold Coast and Ghana. Like most countries, it's the early stamps, and in this case the early stamps of the Gold Coast, where the value lies, and in my personal view where the beauty lies. But having said that, there are some nice stamps from Ghana, and some of the later ones are very attractive too. So it's whatever takes your fancy, and like always when you're collecting stamps, you decide what you like, you collect what you like, and you enjoy what you like. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again in a couple of weeks' time.